We're coming to you live from our Auckland Park studios. This is Prime News on SABC 3. Here are the top stories making headlines.
There was a suspicion then, a real suspicion, that Lieutenant General Mkonazi was recruited by the Central Intelligence Agency.
The Madlanga Commission has heard the claims of the CIA recruiting the king of the Amazulu Nation and KZN Police Commissioner, as well as businessman Brown Mokgotsi, allegedly being a contact agent of crime intelligence and more. KwaZulu-Natal-based researcher and crime activist Dr. Meridi Haas has raised serious concerns about the experience and appointment of a senior police official linked to political killings investigations. And the speakers at the G20 Social Summit say inequality has been felt deep and the social contract has weakened globally. It has just gone 8 o'clock. Good evening and a warm welcome to Prime News on 3. I am Paulette Nell. Great to be in your company this evening as we bring you up to speed with the latest happening in and around your world. Well, let's begin here this evening. The Madlanga Commission was transported to the world of intelligence, hearing claims of the CIA recruiting the king of the Amazulu Nation and KZN Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Mkonazi, as well as businessman Brown Mokgotsi, allegedly being a contact agent of crime intelligence and more. This as Mokgotsi took to the stand before the probe, which entered phase 2 of its evidence, giving implicated persons the opportunity to respond to the allegations against them.
The highly anticipated evidence of Brown Mokgotsi, an alleged associate of Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, who is on a leave of absence, kicked off with Mokgotsi laying the foundation for his status as a contact agent. This was seemingly in a bid to explain his interactions with alleged cartel member Vusimuzi Kat Matlala, who allegedly gave monetary benefits to Mokgotsi, someone he believed to share close proximity to Mchunu, in exchange for the safeguarding of his SABC tender. Mokgotsi's so-called journey as a contact agent led to several revelations made to him, including hearsay evidence of the American Central Intelligence Agency's alleged recruitment on South Africa's soil.
The information as it came was that there was a suspicion then, a real suspicion, that Lieutenant General Mkonazi was recruited by the Central Intelligence Agency, the American one.
Relayed to us by you, this information is hearsay, and relayed to you by your source, it is hearsay. So it is hearsay upon hearsay or double hearsay. Do you agree?
I do not agree, commissioners.
While Mokgotsi admits to interactions with Matlala, the former suggests that it was part of a trap operation as he was investigating Matlala's tender.
The perceived links that I have with persons in the underworld is drawn from WhatsApp communication inter alia with Matlala, which were sent and in execution of my task orders received from my handler.
Mokgotsi further alleged that SABC tender kickbacks were allegedly paid to former Police Minister Begicele and Top Cop General Fani Masemola, which runs contrary to recordings placed before the Commission, where Matlala states that these payments were made to support the alleged ANC presidential ambitions of Mchunu through Mokgotsi as a quote-unquote middleman.
It is Matlala who told me that these people are very ungrateful. He further spoke about General Begicele and General Masemola, saying that, these people expect me, like Masemola, he expects 25 million rand from me. And I have already given him 5 million rand.
Mokgotsi denies any association with Mchunu and instead attributes his conduct at all material times to, quote-unquote, creating perceptions and trust in the furtherance of his mandate, as instructed by his handler. The hearings continue. Kani Mapanga, SABC News, Pretoria.
Meanwhile, the city of Ekurhuleni is going after the metro's human resources and a legal head of departments following allegations of misconduct emerging from the Madlanga Commission. Ekurhuleni will convene an extraordinary council meeting to discuss corrective action against the implicated parties.
I have mandated the city manager to institute a broader, comprehensive investigation into the allegations within the city's law enforcement structures. The investigation will be undertaken with urgency, and the preliminary report must be concluded within the next 30 days.
One of the things that we should look at as far as why is the challenges in the EMPD. From a governance process is that you all know that where there is no head of department, that department is born to have challenges. And you all know that the issue of the chief of police has been ongoing for quite some time. I think we're sitting at if not 13 months, it's 15 months.
In more related news, a researcher at the KwaZulu-Natal Violence Monitor, Dr. Meridi Haas, says the disbandment of the Political Killings Task Team was the right thing to do. She further stated that she wrote a letter to Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, who is on special leave, calling for the disbandment of the PKTT in October last year.
General Masemola had actually been told that we couldn't afford to, the country couldn't afford to keep this expensive unit going, and I think my role in this is to say it wasn't necessary because we had perfectly good provincial teams, which I have explained, I've given details to. And I had never in my life, in all the years I've kind of worked with police, we've often cooperated. I've put them in touch with people when they're investigating, including back in the 90s. And I have never in my life heard of a task team running around with members of National Intervention Unit.
To this now, social inequality has been felt deep. The social contract has weakened globally, according to speakers at the G20 Social Summit. The Social Summit has been described as the soul of the G20 Summit and the moral center. Deputy President Paul Mashatile has called on world leaders to put the development of the people and change that create opportunities for all at the center of deliberations.
Seemingly a jump by South Africa's second in command at US President Donald Trump, who has snubbed the G20 summit. Delegates are unperturbed by Trump's boycott of the Leaders' Summit this weekend.
Africa holds 30% of the world's mineral reserves, possesses 60% of the world's arable land, and is home to the youngest population on earth, and yet we remain on the periphery of global economic decision-making.
G20 Social Network co-convener Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka called on delegates to put the African continent's developmental agenda at the forefront.
Africa is not poor. It has more than 50% of the world's arable land, so we shouldn't be having poverty and hunger.
Deputy President Paul Mashatile highlighted how the Global South is increasingly asserting its voice globally.
Well, as you know that the US has boycotted, they are not here. So we will continue with other countries. I'm confident that the leaders of the G20 who will be participating this weekend will consider issues coming from the social summit very seriously.
Samkele Masego, SABC News, Boksburg.
Joining us now is Professor Thuli Madonsela, a leading advocate for social justice, to unpack the significance of today's discussions for South Africa and the Global South. Good evening, Prof. Thank you so much for making time for us this evening. Prof, let's get straight into it. South Africa's poverty levels remain among the highest globally, with nearly 55% of the people living below the upper bound poverty line. The 2024-2025 budget also highlights shrinking fiscal space and growing resilience on social ground. Given this, Prof, is South Africa entering the G20 Social Summit with a realistic plan to reduce poverty amid extreme inequality?
Good evening and greetings to,
Evening, Prof.
to the viewers. South Africa does have a realistic plan. Firstly, poverty in South Africa or anywhere in the world is influenced by poverty elsewhere. So if South Africa wants to end poverty and inequality, it needs to work within the global ecosystem. For example, some of the speakers spoke about how Africa is extracted from and pays more for capitalization. So all of that has to do with the fact that the world is a pyramid scheme. A pyramid scheme where South Africa and the rest of Africa are extracted from.
Prof, with the G20's focus on inclusive development, is South Africa prioritizing disability rights, youth unemployment, and not to mention the lack of digital skills amongst the youth? And what commitments should this summit deliver on that?
I got a sense that the social summit is getting a handle on some of that. For example, Minister Chikunga, who spoke for the Women 20 group, she spoke about how youth has to be prioritized, not just in terms of employment, but also in terms of the capacity to create and earn livelihoods for themselves. She spoke also about people with disabilities needing to prioritize and women, and also GBV needing to be addressed as a priority matter. Then there was a minister from Lesotho who spoke about the importance of collaboration, which is solidarity. And then there was one speaker who spoke about rethinking capitalism. Again, South Africa cannot succeed entirely on its own if the current economic relations globally remain exploitative.
And lastly, Prof, for many South Africans, the Global Summit feels distant and quite elite. What will determine whether this summit actually matters, especially on the ground?
I think what will determine whether this means anything to the average person, what I refer to as the Ekurhuleni, will be the summit declaration. To what extent does it put issues such as food security and poverty at the center? To what extent does it not just talk about inequality, but it deals with the causes of inequality, the rigged system as we see it? To what extent does it talk about what prevents young people from creating sustainable capital? What prevents townships and villages all over the world from competing equitably with the cities? And lastly, to what extent are the voices of the being listened to? We noted that today there were ordinary people, but the declaration will indicate that what the people said will make it into the declaration.
All right, thank you so much. That was Prof. Thuli Madonsela, advocate for social justice, to unpack the significance of today's discussions for South Africa and the Global South. We certainly look forward to those declarations. After the break, as the race to access critical minerals intensifies, South Africa plans to take the G20 critical minerals frameworks to the world. Stay tuned. Welcome back to this now. Mineral and Petroleum Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe is urging countries on the continent to unite behind its minerals. The department, in partnership with the United Nations Development Programme, hosted the G20 Africa Critical Minerals Partnership engagement in Sandton, Johannesburg, under the theme Harnessing Critical Minerals for Inclusive Growth and Sustainable Development.
Critical minerals have been identified as a strategic focus under priority number 4 of South Africa's G20 presidency.
We are committed to the 6 pillars. These 6 pillars, interrelated strategic pillars, each addressing challenges across the value chain, mapping and exploration.
The United Nations UNDP Africa Director Ahuna Eziakona delivered an address on the future potential of critical minerals in shaping economies.
If you just look at these 3 key principles, solidarity, equality and sustainability, these are at the heart of securing our common humanity. And I really commend South Africa for insisting on this.
A panel discussion was held on taking advantage of the global demand for critical minerals.
This is a great moment for us to really set the agenda for the G20, given that critical minerals is one of the priority issues that are being discussed globally.
A consensus that the success of the G20 critical minerals framework will create a level playing field, enable fair competition and support fair trade in pushing for the reindustrialization of the African continent. The United Nations also calling for global solidarity behind the outcomes of South Africa's G20 presidency. I'm Katla Gologodi for SABC News in Sandton, Johannesburg.
That concludes our time together this evening. Much gratitude for joining us. We don't leave you alone. We leave you with the latest weather update. But for now, it's good night. God bless. Pula.
A very good evening to you. Let's unpack all your weather details. In the Western Cape overnight, you can expect clear conditions. That's through the coastal regions northwards, in towards the Northern Cape as well. Otherwise, partly cloudy skies through the central parts of the Northern Cape, in towards the central parts of South Africa, where we're expecting partly cloudy skies to continue. That's through the Free State, southwards along the coastal provinces. Scattered rainfall expected along the southern and eastern escarpment in both the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal this evening, whilst Johannesburg is expecting some isolated showers continuing through Mpumalanga northwards in towards Limpopo as well. Now ahead towards tomorrow, and we've got scattered rainfall expected through parts of the Mpumalanga and the Limpopo provinces, whilst isolated showers continue to be a possibility through the Northwest Province and Gauteng and onto the eastern coastline southwards towards the Eastern Cape. We've got clear conditions and sunny skies for the Western Cape and Northern Cape tomorrow. That's through the middle of the week, but be on the lookout to this evening for potential severe thunderstorms. That's through the coastal provinces of the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal, mostly through the interior. And ahead towards tomorrow, that warning shift being northwards in towards Limpopo and Mpumalanga. Pretoria dropping to 15 degrees this evening, Bloemfontein down to 14, whilst Cape Town dips to 17, Durban down to 18, warming up on Wednesday to a maximum of 24. Mid-20s expected through the Free State. That's in Bethlehem, slightly warmer expected for Bloemfontein at 29, Johannesburg up to 25, Polokwane up to 24 degrees, all the while as Cape Town warms up to 27. We're expecting sunny conditions to continue on Wednesday. Cooler temperatures in the south coast of the Western Cape. Southeast is up to 40 kilometers an hour for Cape Town, so be on the lookout for that. Otherwise, a clearing trend through the central parts of the country, but cool temperatures in place for your forecast with scattered rainfall for Gauteng and Mpumalanga. That's it from me. Enjoy your evening.